Hi there, today I'm going to be going through my watercolor lettering kit. This is going to be a really fast-paced video, just trying to show kind of what the brushes look like. So come along with me and I'll show you what they look like. So most of these brushes are pretty self-explanatory. This new watercolor letter and the watercolor light, the new one, does not have dried edge look on the edges, but it does have variation of darker color and lighter color. Now this wet blend brush is very easy to use. You'll just use a light pressure to pull a little bit of the color and a hard pressure to pull more of the color. And I just go back and forth little by little and pull and push color back and forth. Now these next two brushes are my most favorite lately. The watercolor letter with blooms 1 and 2, and the difference between 1 and 2 is the weight of the upstroke and the downstroke. So if you just see when I do the bloom 2, the weight of the upstroke is thicker, and these letters actually look like they have blooms in them. So right here you can see that the upstroke is a lot thicker than the bloom 1. So these are that main watercolor 1, 2, and 3. That main watercolor 1 has a more smooth edge, but it also has that dried watercolor edge, so it looks like dried watercolor on the edge of the lettering. And right here, if you kind of go over the lettering a couple times, it will lighten up the center. Now that main watercolor 2 is going to have a more jittery edge, kind of like the real look of watercolor. It's not smooth and perfect. It still has the darker edges and lighter center, and I'm zooming in, you can see it's all jittery. So that main 3, it has more of a thick downstroke and a much thinner upstroke than the other 2, and it still has a dried edge where it's darker on the edges and lighter in the center. So next up is MAGIC watercolor 1 and 2, and the best way to do these is to pick a color, then go back to your color wheel and click that top right hand box, click that second color and pick what color you want. Those 2 colors are the colors that are going to mostly show up when you use this brush. And it also has the dried edge look. It's kind of lighter in the middle, and yeah. So in this one, I am just going in and picking 2 different colors to show you kind of how the MAGIC brush works. As you can see, the upstrokes are a lot thinner than the MAGIC one. Now we're going to kind of play with the smudge brush too. It is my new favorite smudging brush, and what I do with this brush is I kind of pull a little bit of color with a light pressure and push color with a light pressure. If you want to pull more color, then you would use a harder pressure. I would also like to say that I do not use Alpha Lock or Select when I'm using my smudge brushes. It just makes the brushes act different. So I just make the brush smaller and zoom in, and that is usually how I use my brushes. And then right here, I'm just pulling the color down so you can kind of see what the smudge brush actually looks like. Now here is Monoline Letter and Monoline MAGIC, and these are just your traditional monoline brushes, except it has that watercolor look, so the dried edge and then a lighter middle of the letter. And this Monoline MAGIC works just like the other magic brush. I'm gonna pick the two colors, and that's pretty much it. So the thick letter, obviously the upstroke and downstroke are both the same weight. They're both pretty thick, and it is pressure sensitive, so the more pressure you do, it's like adding more water, so it's going to be lighter. If you do a lighter pressure, it's not going to add water, and it's going to be a darker color. So the pressure letter watercolor, the harder you press, the more water is going to be added, and so it's going to make the color kind of disperse, if that makes sense. The dark watercolor letter is a very dark and opaque lettering brush, and it does still have the dried edge look on that one. And then the last two are the classic letter watercolor and the classic texture watercolor. So the classic is just like your classic modern calligraphy brush, where thick downstrokes and thin upstrokes, and then the texture has a little texture on the edges of that brush. And that's going to be all for the brushes in this video, but in the next video I'm going to show you how to use the bloom brushes and also the texture backgrounds. So I just want to thank everyone who has bought my brushes, and thanks for coming along on this journey. I know this video is probably a little rough, but hopefully with time I will get better. So I'll see you in the next video.